Okay, so I wanted to start another video because this one goes a little bit deeper because it's more about adding the workflow to TDM. Now the workflow itself is fairly simple. Okay, if you see I have a start, I'm logging some activities. I probably could delete one of these logs, but that's okay. You can never overlog. Well, I guess you could. But the only thing it's really calling is a SQL activity with parameters. Okay, that's very important. I should have said that in the other video because you can do just a basic SQL calls. Oracle's has the same thing. I do execute query, but I want to make sure I can pass in parameters. The Oracle one has the same thing. Now, if I say, well, PSL SQL, but that's okay. If I say add a parameter, you notice the parameter I'm adding is a parent ID. That probably can be renamed. We'll talk about that in a second. But most importantly, I'm passing in the value, just like I'm on the other video. The value here is the ID. We'll talk about that in a few seconds of where it's coming from and how it's getting there. If I look at the query is very elementary to SQL, right? So I'm updating stage. I'm setting used to true, where the ID is the ID that I'm passing in, okay? That's the same as the other video. I'm just creating a parameter. Very importantly, you got to make sure these are all strings. That's why you have to pass in as a parameter. Notice this is a string. It will only read a string. So if I put something at the end of this, that's not a string. It will error on me. But with saying that, if you go look at the table, what we need to do is when an ID is being used. So the purpose of this workflow is when I publish data, TDM is going to get the data from this table. Now, when it is published, I need to know which IDs were published. So then when I go grab more IDs, I don't get the same IDs because they're being used. Hence, we can't have duplicates in the database. So this is kind of just rechecking itself from the staging table. So it's saying that I kind of started on the back end because now I need to go look and see where this ID comes from. If I go into the portal, let me tell you first how to create a workflow. You go to orchestration, workflows, add any workflow. You can name it whatever, that reminds me to rename it. And then I just drag and drop or click it here. The one we just did is this one. If I select it, upload it, then I'm good. Now, if I need to do variables is very simple. Now, we're not uploading variables in this case, but let's say I wanted to. All I gotta do is hit export variables, and this will export to a CSV. Then you can come to here and upload your variables. Now, again, I don't want to do that for this situation because we're going to pass it a variable, not use the variables. So what I'm going to do is go, oops. Now, if I need to make a change, then you can do what I did, is just click on it and then upload it again, and it will override it. But we don't want this one, so let's get rid of that one. Oh, no, ooh, close. We want to get rid of this one. All right. I just create it again, but no biggie. Now, to use that, we need to create an action. So if I go look at this generation, I've got this generation, and I'm using this one for a reason. Here, let's look at my tables. I have the two tables, the set stage and the stage temp. The only thing I care about is this one. I don't really care about this one because it's not doing anything. The Javelin is handling that one. Okay. Notice used, yes, no. So if I look at the actual query in this one, there's only one column, ID, and you'll see it when I'm running. And oops. And if I go look at this one, notice my query says select ID from stage where used equals false. Okay. Now, what that is doing is it will go to the database here, and it's going to grab one that is set to false. Okay. And of course, this is my SQL list of values. Okay. All right. Close this. What I'm going to do is now look at the actions. In my post publish action, this is where it's very important. What you have to do is, it's a workflow. This is the workflow I want to use. Publish data. So use variables as a published data. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a few seconds. Which table does it want to pull from? I'm only using the one. Now this is very important because this kind of stumped me a few times. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know why this option's here. There should be an option. Do you just want to use one or all the values? Because I want all the values. So the goal is to get all the IDs that are published, right? Well, in this case, I put it at this high number. The error would be if you published more than this, then it would probably error out on you, or just stop at that number. So just keep that in mind. It's a max value of records you want sent to the Javelin is an easy way to think about that. Now, wait for completion. That way it's, you complete your publish and then the Javelin's ran. And then it has to be post. In order to get the variables, you have to do it as a post action. Now, in the GT Data Maker, you have more options. Here, I think you only have pre and post. So let's just say done. I didn't make any changes. Now, the trick is when you go in there the first time and you try to select this, it won't let you the very first time. Let me show you. So I'll make one. Create a publish action. Oh, I don't know if I can hit the back button. That's bad practice. See, I can publish table or publish. So we want to publish. So I want to publish action. We'll give it a name. We'll call this one delete me also. Some description. Okay. Now, select the type. I want it to be a workflow. I only have one workflow. I'm going to say pre or post. I want to do post, and I do want to wait for completion. Now, I can't select publish to data. Okay. I don't know if that's a bug right now. So what I'll do is, oh, can I go back? Wow, I can't even go back. Okay, so I actually only hit the direct SQL. No, it won't let me go back. Let's just see what happens here. So I want to save it. Once you save it, though, then you can go back in and choose this option. See, it's kind of weird. Just think that normally what I do is I'll leave it on default values. I create it, make sure it's on post, save it, then go back into it and select publish data. Okay. Again, it wants to know what table. Make sure you add records here. Okay, so I want a lot. There we go. Now this will work. Now, the cool thing is, I don't want to use it. So we're going to delete it. Bam. But that's how you create your action. Number one, that's how you add the workflow to your TDM process, project, whatever. And then you execute it through an action. Now, the secret to making the IDs go through, this was kind of tricky. In your Javelin, you have to make sure the name of the variable that you want to get, well, let me say, the name of the column that you want to get the data from has to be the same name as the variable in Javelin. So in the table that I told Javelin I want to use, I have to make sure this ID, this name, matches this name. If the case isn't the same, if you go and rename this table, or if you use a different database, you have to make sure it matches here. That's how it gets the variable. Okay. So again, this name, your variable, has to match the column name of the table that you told it to over here. When it asked me which table did I want to get the ID from, okay, ID temp stage, well, I'm showing you the wrong one. It's actually this one, but it's still the same thing. So, because what's going to happen is I'm going to write to this table a list of IDs, and I want those IDs written back to my Javelin. Now, that's a good point. We'll have this up. Let's go ahead and delete it real quick, because we want to start with a fresh. Okay. All right. Just check ourselves for sanity, and we're good. But again, this ID for the column that we're pulling from, because this is obviously a temp, we're going to change this. So, got to make sure that ID still matches. Now, hopefully I expressed that in much, because if you have an error, that's the first place you want to look. Let's run this. So I got my generator. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. And same as we've always done here. I'm using this ID stage table. Probably should go ahead and clean some of these up, because most of these aren't used. I want to repeat, let's do 25. I did 25 the first time, let's repeat 25 this time. I would expect it to run, well, it's going to run 25 times, so let's do 10. And then down here, this isn't important because I wouldn't expect dupes anyway, but I don't want any debugging in a scenario. Well, you know what, to prove it, the concept, since I said that, let's just put it back the way it was. Okay, and let's publish. Go. Okay. I probably clicked it too many times, so let's go look. Oh, sorry. Let's go look at our submitted requests. This was a generator. Should it be this one? Yes, because it's still running. Oh, I did click it twice. Oh well. So we've got it running, but we can always go check the database. So here, do I have data coming in? Yes, I do. So this means that the Javelin is running. The first one. No, I'm sorry. This isn't Javelin. This is you going to that table and getting IDs that aren't being used. Okay. And now the other part would be the Javelin, which is here. Now, notice they're being set to true. So that tells you that these have completed. And if I open one of these, here's my data. See? Ta-da! There's my 10 IDs that I can use. And then if I open my log, it tells me everything ran just fine. So there you have it. That is using Javelin by passing IDs from the portal to the Javelin and basically using two different workflows to come up with IDs that do not exist in the database, pulled into TDM to be used in a quicker query, and controlling the IDs that are being used. I hope this makes sense, and if you have any questions, please just reach out to me.